So if you want to see some old people have their midlife crisis in public, there we go.
Hello and welcome to Every Edition, your tabletop RPG talk show. I'm Jesse.
I'm Jon.
Today, we are in a different setting. We are not in Jon's basement.
Where are we?
We have, in fact, gone outside, and we are at MepaCon 2023.
Whoa, in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Some people say Bethlehem.
Bethlehem?
I say Bethlehem because because that's how you pronounce Bethlehem steel.
Oh, sure.
You don't say Bethlehem
That's
steel.
nearby-ish.
It is ish, yeah. So here we are, MepaCon.
On today's Loot the Body, we're going to be talking about Shadowdark, the recent Kickstarter that did super, super well for the OSR.
Yeah. And for our main segment, which we call a random encounter, we are going to be interviewing some of the founders and staff of MepaCon and learning about this awesome convention that we are attending. One of the great things that we're doing right now is we are doing this at the convention, and so you're going to hear convention goers every once in a while, and we're happy to be here. So
super exciting.
Yeah, there you go.
And we're going to play some games.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully talk about our experiences with them in the next episode.
Yep, absolutely.
And of course, we have our morale check where we take a look at news of the times for the RPG space and what's going on in our world. But first, Jon, what's new?
Well, so I am over 40 years old.
Okay.
And so it's the perfect time to get the old punk rock band back together.
Sure.
So I was in a band 20 years ago called Charlie Brown Gets a Valentine. And we are getting back together.
Nice.
It's the 20th anniversary of our album Dismissed.
Okay.
And it's being reissued on vinyl.
Ooh.
And we're playing 2 shows, one in Baltimore and one in Brooklyn, coming up on June 9th and 10th.
Okay.
So if you want to see some old people have their midlife crisis in public, there we go. Jesse, what's new with you?
Well, I actually just got a Kickstarter that I had been waiting on for about 2 years.
Ooh, what one?
I had backed a expansion of a game called The Binding of Isaac Requiem, which is a board game-ish card game. That's based on a video game.
I was going to say, I have the video game.
Super fun, very random.
Okay.
And they did a really good job of translating that to a card game, like board game thing. And this was just the next iteration of the game. A bunch of new cards. They actually did a stretch goal for every 1,000 backers. They added a alternate art card made by someone like famous.
Cool.
Like some famous artists. There was like 40 different ones. All from digital artists to traditional artists, some names you might know. Super fun. It came in. The box is super cool. Got a bunch of awesome goodies. Super happy. And there's actually someone running a game of Requiem here at MepaCon this weekend. So I might sign up for that.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. All right, it's time for a morale check. Morale checks are when we take a look at the tabletop role-playing game industry and news of the time. Coming up in the month of May, very soon, May 2023, Wet Ink Games is going to be launching a Kickstarter for Never Going Home. It's going to be new supplements for that game. Never Going Home is a really interesting game. It's set in World War I, but it uses Cthulhu mythos type stuff. Really great setting and a really interesting system. One of the things I'm excited about coming up is we're going to have a chance to interview Wet Ink Games and help support their Kickstarter and get the word out about it and do a review of Never Going Home. So stay tuned for that. Take a look at Never Going Home right now from Wet Ink Games and get ready for a new Kickstarter and a new episode of Every Edition with an interview with us.
Staying on the theme of Kickstarters, Free League just ended their Walking Dead Universe Kickstarter. It ended over $500,000 was the kickstarted amount when they hit all of their stretch goals.
Wow.
It seems like they're using their Year Zero engine just like all their other games. Tales from the Loop, Alien, Blade Runner. I I didn't know that I needed a zombie free league game.
Yeah.
But this sounds fantastic. And it looks like the starter set's going to come with... Their starter sets are always high tier.
Yep, amazing.
They have a lot of good stuff. And this one doesn't miss the mark. It's got maps, it's got dice, it's all that. I can't wait for this thing to come out.
Yeah, I hope it uses the stress mechanic like the Alien RPG, because a zombie game definitely lends itself to that sort of thing where, like, hey, you're getting tired,
Yep.
you're from constantly running or something like that. So I think a modified version of the Alien stress mechanic would make a lot of sense.
It seems like they have two different styles, where Alien you could play like a cinematic thing that's almost like a one-shot, or a campaign mode where you're playing for multiple days or multiple sessions. Instead, you've got a survival mode, which is where you're dropped into a situation and you have to just deal with it.
Oh, cool.
And then there's I guess like a campaign mode, I can't remember the name for it, where you play sort of open-end, like normal RPG stuff.
Sure.
But they have settings from the show, the books, that will pop up. And I'm sure we'll see, like, famous characters like Michonne or Rick or people like that. So
nice. So in other news, our good friend James Floyd Kelly has put out the latest issue of Delver, Delver issue 7 here.
Got it here.
Which has our second ad. For every edition, which is very exciting for us. But also right now on Kickstarter, there is a campaign going right now for Delver issue 8. So if you love old school essentials, if you love OSR games, if you like random rolling tables.
Lots of tables.
And Delver's for you. Every issue of Delver also comes with an adventure for old school essentials, for BX Dungeons and Dragons. So it's a fantastic resource, and it seems like it's bi-monthly.
Yeah, it's very quick turnaround too.
Very quick turnaround. So who knows? Maybe we'll have an ad in Delver 8. We'll see. But definitely check out the Kickstarter, and if you haven't checked out Delver before, it is definitely worth your time.
Yep. And lastly, we have news from Paizo about a pseudo 1.5-ish. I don't want to call it that, but I want to call it that, for Starfinder, which is a game that's been out for, I think, like 5 or 6 years at this point.
Yep.
It's been a good while.
Yep.
And they're doing a sort of refresh. They're looking at some rules, they're changing some things, they're rebalancing, they're adding 90 new feats, a bunch of different playable races, which they have a ton of in their Alien archives. It seems like they're really sort of maybe taking what they've learned from Pathfinder 2, and because Starfinder was built off of Pathfinder 1 with some tweaks and changes, it seems like they're using maybe what they've learned from 2 and integrating that sort of into Starfinder without a whole new edition. Yeah,
it looks like they're going to do some rebalancing of some of the classes, some of the core classes. So it does feel a little bit more like a 1.5. It's going to be called Starfinder Enhanced.
Yes.
And it's very similar to something that Pathfinder did with Pathfinder Unchained, which was right towards the end of the life of Pathfinder 1E, right? First edition. They did this sort of refresh, right?
Yep.
And a 1.5 kind of version. It's compatible, right? And Starfinder Enhanced is going to be compatible with first edition Starfinder. But it was the beginning of the end for Pathfinder. I'm starting to wonder if it's the same thing for Starfinder.
Yeah, I mean, with a game edition being so old, you kind of have to refresh for people who are getting into the game, because they do have a sort of a Paizo equivalent of Adventure League, so they are continually updating rules and things. But if you don't put those into print where somebody just starting the game can actively get them, they might be playing a different game than what everybody else is playing. So
well, and I see Paizo fans online wanting Starfinder to use the same rules as Pathfinder Second Edition, so that they're all under the same umbrella. And so if that's something the fans want, if that's something that people that are playing Starfinder and Pathfinder, they want them to use the same rules, then it's going to happen, because it's an opportunity to sell a core book.
Yeah, a new core book,
right? Which is, that's bread and butter right there. So,
and a new starter set.
And a new starter set. Yep.
More dice.
Reissue the whole shebang. So yeah. So it's I'll check it out. See what it is. I like Starfinder first edition. So
do you want a Starfinder 2nd Edition. If you've tried Starfinder 1 or have been playing it throughout its history, I'm curious to know if people actively want a 2nd Edition or if they've maybe played through Pathfinder 1 and 2. If they're like, oh no, don't leave my game alone, please. Don't give me this.
Right.
So let us know down in the comments below or send us a note over at everyeditionrpg@gmail.com. You can also check out our socials and links to podcasts and things over at everyeditionrpg.com. It's time for a random encounter. On today's random encounter, we are here with Ed and Katie of MepaCon, and we're here at MepaCon 44, and they have graciously given us this room to get out of our basement and record here in front of people. So hi, Ed, Katie, how are you?
Hello.
Hi, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Have we ever done a live interview? It's always been over Zoom, right?
Yeah, I mean, those count. Those are like live, right?
So it's a little
They
intimidating.
still exist.
You're real.
In spite of our best efforts.
Yeah.
So, I guess this is the first day of MepaCon. MepaCon is 3 days long, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I was actually surprised. There are games that start at midnight.
Yep.
So they go way into the wee hours of the morning. And, some people are hardcore gamers. I thought that I was, but, I'll probably be asleep. I guess I'm getting old. But how's the convention going so far?
Good. Yeah, I like to say we run about 20 hours a day. So there's like a 4-hour window that usually no one's awake, but sometimes there are people who bridge that. But we've been underway for a little while and things are going great.
That's intense. So who is it? Is it fans of the convention that sort of book the game slots?
Yep. So
Okay.
we open the game slots. You can start anytime from when we open until about midnight, and you can put it in for however long you'd like. We have a pretty open schedule, and our GMs volunteer their time, which we very much appreciate, and put on some amazing games for us. Mm-hmm. And we have a strong overnight crew that loves to play social deduction games into the wee hours of the morning.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what is give us a taste of sort of the variation or of games, the slate of games that people can pick from to play. What kinds of games are here?
We have pretty much everything that is tabletop games and LARPs. So we have live action role playing, we have role playing games, we have organized play, living campaigns role playing games, we have card games, board games, social deduction games, miniatures. We have a whole miniatures track. We have a whole kids track.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have a lot.
No, as a fan of gaming conventions and a fan of MepaCon, one of the things that I really appreciate about this convention is, and I mean this in the best way possible, it has an old school kind of feel to it, in that I can still sign up for games the day of the the day of the convention, and I'm doing it on a piece of paper. It's not everything is app dependent, and the fact that you guys do have games well into the night, whereas at a lot of larger conventions, they really hard cut off.
You get out of the convention
and stuff like that. Like it has some of the sort of hallmarks of just a fantastic, like old school, like when before conventions became sort of cookie cutter kind of feel, and that's one of the things I really appreciate about MepaCon, and what I tell people about. This is one you don't want to miss because it feels like a convention. From 30 years ago in the best way possible.
Well, I'll give a lot of that credit to Ed. Ed was our founder. He started this whole shindig, and now we said, you come back for life anytime you want. We'll run it, but we want you to be here. And Ed was very gracious in training myself. We have actually 4 directors that share the responsibility that Ed used to do all by himself. It takes all of us to fill Ed's shoes, but we loved how Ed ran it. We loved what Ed did with it, and we've tried to maintain that old school, that welcoming environment that we loved before.
Awesome. Ed, when was the first MepaCon?
It was 2001 in the fall. It was a one-day event, roughly a week after 9/11.
Okay.
Almost didn't run.
Sure.
But we figured people needed to get away.
Yeah, they
Sure.
need an escape. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Especially around here.
Yeah.
And had you been someone who had gone to gaming conventions yourself?
No.
Okay.
I that's not entirely true. I went to like one or two. There were the original conventions that I kind of drew from. There was a guy, Mike Griffith, who ran Lehigh Con down in the Allentown area, and he did 1-days in the spring and fall, BoggleCon, GobbleCon. I would do the 1-days. They were easy to go do. Boom. I went to like 1 or 2 Lehigh Cons. He stopped doing them, and a number of years later, leading up to 2001, I was like, I'd like to go to these again and do these again. And I wonder whatever happened. So I did a lot of digging and, found some of the people involved. And, well, there was a lot of talk, but nothing happened.
Sure,
And
as it goes.
then I brought it to the group of friends that initially were helping me out. And I said, what do you think? We can do this. How hard can this be? It's like owning a apartment. And I like organizing. I like planning.
Sure.
I grew up in a household. My parents were, party central. They our garage, our basement, our living room, always people over. So I waited to see what the going thought was, and eventually I just picked up the football and said, okay, this is what we're doing. And we did a 1-day, and a bunch of the people who were from the original conventions, which they were like, so you're going to do 2 a year like Mike did? I was like, Trish, can we do 2 a year? Trish is one of the directors who's not here, and she's very technically oriented, and I knew I am not. I can do it.
It's a very good thing that Ed had passed the baton before we went virtual in 2020, because I don't think Ed could have done it. I love you, Ed. You know that. But Ed, that's not.
No, it was
not
not my
forte,
strong.
yeah.
That was not my strong suit. But we did 3 1-days before I decided, okay, we're going to a weekend format, and then we started the 3 days, and people were a little skeptical at first, but I was like, nope. This is what we're doing. It feels right.
Yeah. No, the fact that MepaCon is twice a year is so awesome. And that is something that sets it apart from other conventions. I was just here in the fall, and thankfully I didn't have to wait that long to come back. Like it was that great. And I met Katie there, and I said, oh, we'd love to come and do an episode. But I do think that's one of the strengths of this convention is that it is, fall and spring. Happens more than once a year. That's awesome. Really exciting.
Do you remember roundabouts, the initial head count for the 1-day shows?
40
Okay.
ish. And
Seems like a lot
one
of people.
vendor, maybe. Well, to be fair, there's we drew from the Philly area. Our first conventions happened in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
In the local, it was either a fire hall or American Legion. Either one or both. And there was a guy down in Philly who ran the local RPGA, Mike Schley. He ran the Living Greyhawk at the time. That was big. That just came out in 01. This was 01, 02, 03, 04. That was just a juggernaut building at the time. So he came about in the second convention, and automatically that filled 5 tables of 7.
Nice.
There you go.
So the second MepaCon was, let's say, 50, 60 people all total.
I think that twice a year definitely helps to bolster that, because especially if you're starting a 1-day convention, people might forget after a whole year. But if you've got the dates set for the next one, they've got something to look forward to. I think like you said, John, the twice a year really helps.
Well, and I always gauge a convention on how user friendly it is, how much how welcoming it is. I a couple episodes back I dumped on PAX Unplugged a little bit because it was really hard to navigate.
Unorganized.
It was almost too big and unwieldy. This convention is fantastic. It is so welcoming. It is so user friendly. It's easy to, if you want to come just for one day, you come for one day. You can sign up for games that same day. You can't do that at some other conventions. So it's important to remember sometimes the little things, like this is just a accessible convention. So.
John, you were saying earlier about the feel of the convention and the old school feel.
Yeah.
And that was something that, I drew from the original cons was a lot of the original players, it was the historical 1980s predominantly male gamers. And you had, the power gamers, the war gamers, the role-playing gamers, and it was very that. And that was our player-based building, but by that time players were starting to reproduce. So, and I saw this developing, and I was like, I want to get towards a family-friendly aspect.
Yep.
And I tried to generate that feel in, whatever way I could possibly imagine given our cruise. And apparently, it came
It paid
through.
off in spades for us. I would say a third of our volunteer force are children who attended those first few MepaCons.
Nice.
I call them the not kids because they're not kids anymore.
Right.
But they literally grew up here.
Yes.
And
fantastic.
so we see that.
I brought my son. I didn't bring him in the fall because I'd never been here before and I wanted to check it out. But it was absolutely a no-brainer to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to bring my son.
Yeah.
It's a very, very family-friendly, very, like I said, very comfortable environment and very accessible.
And if you want to, if you're looking at a game and it's you really think it's a cool game, it's a very good chance that you can find it being played here. Play it, see if you like it. If you don't, I'm not going to spend that $80 on that game.
Right.
If you do like it, you're going to be like, I'll take it.
I'll take one.
There was such a wide, looking at the table, and the tables for signups is just this gigantic long hallway. And it's just like, it's fantastic. And there's such a variety of games. And I saw games on there that, like, I know I play, but I didn't know other people played. That I've been, like, trying to convince people I know to play. So it's a really good.
Well, and I signed up for games in advance using, the tabletop events app, right? And Jesse just showed up and is going to be signing up. So we're both getting sort of the both ends of the experience in terms of how you can, access this convention. But like I said, it doesn't matter which one you do. If you plan in advance and use the app, great. If you just want to show up the same day,
if you can't
great.
plan in advance like me because I suck at planning, but there you go.
Yeah, we try really hard to have a good variety of games too, and we have those board games that you're trying to convince your friends to play. Yeah. We're also running a chess event tonight.
Yeah.
Chess is cool right now with the kids.
Chess is so cool with the kids. I know
they're doing it on their phones.
Every
right?
time I turn around, my students are playing chess.
Yes,
it's a battle.
Everything comes around.
It does.
Yeah.
I can't believe
so
I'm like. You shouldn't be playing.
I know, right?
Chess right now.
I guess
what?
This isn't really the best time.
Yeah.
So we have those classic games, and then we have all these brand new games. We have a number of learn to play RPGs. We have some ones that are how to play tabletop with minis and grids, and how to play Theater of the Mind, and how to play Pathfinder specifically, how to play D&D 5th edition specifically.
Yep.
So we have a lot of that going on, as well as for experienced gamers.
I can't remember the name of it, but I did see that there was a game that someone is creating. Like they're about to start a Kickstarter for it.
The Establishment.
They're using this.
Amanda.
We do have the Establishment.
So.
Yep.
And they're sort of like play testing and letting people try new games. So like if you're someone who likes to try new games before they're out, also super good for that.
Yeah.
We've had a number of people over the last several years here that were either developing games. I've had people ask me, do you know where I can get game pieces made for my game that I am going to be putting on Kickstarter? And I would, as it turned out, I knew somebody at the time, and I was like, this person wants to know this person knows this.
Yep.
And they would go off and talk their business.
That's fantastic.
Katie and Ed, favorite games? What do you guys play? I mean, you probably don't get a chance to play the weekend of MepaCon.
Well, he
because
does now because he's
I
retired.
can play occasionally, yes.
He actually
work.
gets to play some.
All right, so Ed, what are you playing this weekend?
Oddly enough, I am sitting a vendor table this convention because
True.
it's a long story and more time than really needs to be spent here. But I'm actually selling stuff. So I have a number of just little games like Zombies by Twilight Creations. I have in my behind my table, and Arboretum, and just quick little games. But my favorite games are Eclipse, Terra Mystica, Terraforming Mars. These big logistics 4X games that last 6-8 hours. If you have a it's hard to find players.
Sure.
I did teach my wife and my son to play so I could do a small game, and I've gotten to the point where my son can occasionally beat me.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice.
Which, good sign of a good teacher.
Sure. Katie, favorite game?
My favorite game has to be Schrodinger's Cats. It is probability in a card game, which as a math teacher speaks to me. I actually have a group of friends who are at MepaCon that come every year. They're the ones who introduced me, and they stay up till 3 a.m. with me to play so that I can play after most things are starting to settle for the evening. So I'm sure there will be some of that. But my favorite types of games are cooperative games.
Okay.
And a friend of mine reached out and said, "Are you bringing Reckoners?" And I said, I am now. So I brought my copy of Reckoners, and we're going to try to fit that in on Sunday afternoon. So we'll see how that goes. The thing that MepaCon really strives for is to make sure that everyone is included. And so you could see John's wearing our rainbow sticker over there. And we are going to be having an event at a LGBTQ-owned campground in May. That is a 21 plus venue. Obviously, the convention is family friendly, but that venue is 21 plus. And that will be at Camp OUT Poconos on the weekend of May 5th. MepaCon's going to run a board game day and role-playing games for the afternoon, and there will be game and nerd themes throughout camp for the whole weekend.
Awesome.
And then MepaCon is running our next event, October 20th to 22nd, MepaCon 45 at the Best Western in Bethlehem, where we are now.
Nice.
Great.
Already looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I just got here. Weekend just started. Already looking forward to the next one.
Well, Katie and Ed, thank you so much for being on the show and giving us a little bit of your time this weekend. And thanks for having us here at MepaCon and the opportunity to do our first on-location episodes. And it's great to be here. So thank you.
We're happy to have you.
Great to be here, and I do want to give credit to the current directors. I mean, when I had to step away for personal reasons, I wasn't sure if it would continue. They stepped up, took the ball, and we're here today.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I will say on behalf of myself, Eric, Trish, Donald, are my other directors, our staff is phenomenal. Our volunteers are phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about them. We couldn't do it without them. I know that's how you felt when you were in charge as well. And all of those people have stayed, and we've added more. And
It's fantastic.
Katie came out of, from my point of view, came out of nowhere to fill in a gap in what we needed help with back in 05, and just kind of developed through, able to take up the responsibility, wanting to take up responsibility, which, when I was looking at people to take leadership roles, it was mostly driven by them. If they weren't showing they wanted it, I wasn't gonna, I know how forcing leadership roles or stuff that I don't want onto me feels. I don't want it. So,
You don't want to do that.
but they stepped up. Katie stepped up back then. Over the years, a lot of other people came in. Amanda and Matt. They've been really great over the years.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was great to learn more about MepaCon, and big thanks again for hosting us and having us here at the convention. Let us know your favorite convention. Do you have a favorite local convention that you go to? We're so lucky to have
We have tons.
this convention in our backyard, and once a year we've got PAX Unplugged not too far away, but this one twice a year. It's awesome. So definitely worth checking out. All right, and if you are thinking about wanting to attend MepaCon, the next one is coming up in the fall, October 20th through the 22nd. That's going to be MepaCon 45. Whoa. And it looks like the theme is video game heroes and villains.
Nice.
So, you can have your Waluigi costumes ready to rock. Thanks again for hosting us, MepaCon, and we're excited to be here.
It's time to loot the body. On today's Loot the Body, we are taking a look at Shadowdark, the recently extra funded Kickstarter OSR game, really meant to bring in people from 5th edition and other games of the like into the old school game.
Yeah, it really is very much like greatest hits of a lot of the fantasy role-playing games that are out there right now.
Yeah.
One of the things that really attracted me to Shadowdark was, as I was reading the rules, basically every time there was an opportunity to make a choice on what kind of rule to follow, it almost like read my mind. And it pulls from like the best of the best, like
every game.
It pulls from BX and old school essentials. It pulls from Dungeon Crawl Classics. Yep. It pulls from 5th edition, and it blends it all together. In
some Castles and Crusades.
There's some Castles and Crusades in there, absolutely. It blends it all together, and then it also has its own spin on things and some things that make it unique. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But first off, this is an actual copy of the OGL version of the first pressing of Shadowdark, which I was lucky enough to get. I think back in November or something like that. So I read up on this and had the game before the Kickstarter came out, and couldn't believe how it blew up. Mm-hmm. I mean, over $1 million for something that was a zine.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's a similar story to what happened with Mothership.
Yep,
right?
Yep.
And so both Mothership and Shadowdark really blazing a trail. Still waiting for Mothership to actually appear.
Yeah. It's been a while since the Kickstarter.
But it seems like Shadowdark they were smarter about keeping the stretch goals, controlled.
Yeah.
So that humble, so they can still deliver the product in a good clip of time. Mm-hmm. So the only difference between the OGL first pressing of the Quick Start rules and the Quick Start rules that are going to be coming out is the new version is under Creative Commons.
Yep.
This actually has a page for the OGL in the back. Whoop-de-doo. This also uses the word race, and the new version is using the word, I think, ancestry.
Sure. Similar to like Paizo.
Yeah, exactly.
What Wizards is doing.
Yeah. So those are the only two changes. Otherwise, the rules are exactly the same. The books are exactly the same. It's just one of these sort of minor collector items that
this will be up on eBay.
But anyway, so Shadowdark. What makes it unique? We'll talk about that first. It uses a real world clock, a real world timer, to keep track of torches and torchlight. And so the way that it does that is no player characters, no playable races have dark vision.
Super good.
And so it makes the darkness dangerous, mm-hmm. right? And it makes it so that you set a timer, an egg timer or something like that for an hour, and when that egg timer goes off, your torch goes out. So you have to carry torches.
I'm the torch guy.
Yeah, right. You gotta have supplies, right? So that does a couple things. One, it makes the darkness dangerous, right? And if you are in darkness, you have disadvantage.
Yep.
Takes that from 5th edition, right? So you are rolling 2 dice and taking the worst mm-hmm. of the results, right? So just having a torch out, that just makes it so that you are rolling regular dice.
And that's if you're not the person holding the torch.
Right. So if you're in, you have to be bathed in the light. You have to be bathed in the light, and then you're rolling regular dice.
Yeah.
Right. The person holding the torch, they're only going to be able to hold one other thing, right? So they're not going to be fighting with a sword and shield. So the other thing it does, so it makes the darkness dangerous. The second thing that it does is it makes it so that you have to care about your equipment.
Yep.
And the unique way that it goes about executing that is that your strength score is how many items you can carry. So if you have a 13 strength, you can carry 13 items. So right off the bat, 2 or 3 of those slots are going to be torches.
Yep.
Well, you're down to you're down to 8 or 9 things
that you got to carry.
That you can carry.
Your sword.
Yep.
That's another thing, a weapon of some sort.
So it makes encumbrance rules, which were a pain
Yeah.
and annoying.
An
a lot
encumbrance.
Of times. An encumbrance, exactly. It makes it fun. It makes it understandable. It makes it rules light.
Yeah.
And it reinforces this real-time clock with the torches. So that plays really nicely together, really beautifully together. The other unique feature of Shadowdark is that when you level up, you can randomly roll how your character levels up, like what stat increases, right? And so the idea there is rather than every single, third level rogue being exactly the same, by the time you reach third level, you would have had two random rolls for how your character would have improved, and that's going to make your character unique.
Yeah, unique to you.
Unique to you and different than just about anybody else's at the table. I also think too you could tweak that if you wanted to get a specific benefit. That's one of those things where
you talk to your DM.
You talk to your DM, right? You talk to your GM, and you just say, "Hey, I want this," and handshake agreement. It's fine. That's what you can do at your table. So it gives you that option. You can have it be completely random, or I'm sure you can wheel and deal with your GM. So that's one of the things that every like I said, third level rogue is not going to be the same. They're going to be completely different from each other. There's also rules then for in between game actions.
That's really nice. Yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to. Ways for you to sort of spend your gold in between, and do some gambling, get into trouble.
Conan.
The idea behind that was Conan always starts off each novel broke.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you just went on an adventure and you just got all this gold, well, where did all your gold go?
Well, I gambled.
Yeah. So there's going to be a game mechanic and a fun way for you to actually play that out, which I think is pretty cool and interesting.
One of the things about the torch idea and if you're in darkness, you have disadvantage. As a GM, I like the idea of the enemy going for the guy with the torch.
Yes.
Instead of just the first tank.
Right.
Because if the enemy can knock out the fire, the enemy then would have the advantage.
And that's like the first page of the quick start guide for game masters. It says, go for the light.
Yeah.
Attack the light, right? Like that's what you're directed to do as the game master running the monsters. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
And sometimes going through 5th edition or whatever, a majority of the races that people are playing have dark vision, and there's a sort of weird tiptoe you have to go around, what can they see, what can't they see? Do I want them to be able to see this thing before it interacts with them? Oh, everybody's got dark vision, I guess they just see everything. It's tricky. So John, you mentioned greatest hits that Shadowdark takes from a bunch of different games. You mentioned disadvantage by being in the dark.
Yep.
That's clearly from 5th edition.
Yep.
What about some other games?
Sure. So Shadowdark borrows luck tokens from Dungeon Crawl Classics or from Fate RPG if you've played that game. So it uses luck tokens. You can use that to gain advantage on rolls, or to re-roll your rolls, right? Yeah. So that's one feature. It also has, very similar to Dungeon Crawl Classics, it has you rolling to cast your spells, and again you're rolling to see if it succeeds. You're rolling to hit. If you roll a natural 20, then it's going to do exceptionally well. Mm-hmm. And if you roll a 1, there's actually a fumble table for spells, which magical mishap.
We like magical mishaps.
I love magical mishap. So there's a crit table for spells, and there's a mishap table for spells as well. So that's cool. That's exciting. There's no skills, which is similar to BX and Old School Essentials and Castles and Crusades, which I think is the best way to be rules light. And
just roll dex. Just roll strength.
You're rolling your attributes, right? Yep. Which is exactly like BX and like Castles and Crusades and like Old School Essentials. So that's a smart move. It brings back morale for monsters, which again, that's from BX and from Old School Essentials. So that's exciting. It uses my favorite alignment system, which is just chaotic, neutral, and lawful. So again, that comes from BX. That comes from Dungeon Crawl Classics. There's no good and evil. Good and evil is determined by your actions.
Yeah, not predetermined.
That's awesome. I love that so much. So it really just it makes it makes certain choices that like it seems like it feels like it read my mind.
Like if you were making a game.
If I were making a game, I'd be like, oh, I want to take this from this and this from this and this from this, and then it brings back encumbrance rules, but in a fun way, and uses real time to give you a little bit of that stress, a little bit of that pressure that I think helps keep games moving.
So I recently had an experience where I don't typically use real time.
Right.
I mainly play 5th edition D&D. And there was a moment where the group had knocked out the like flight system of this castle. This castle was like a floating castle, and it had like a hoard of gold in it. And they accidentally killed the thing that kept it floating. So rather than say X amount of rounds before it hits the ground or whatever, how are you going to escape? I set a 5-minute timer on my phone and just placed it in the middle of the table.
Oh, cool.
And the table saw the timer, looked at me, looked at each other, and they were like, oh, we need to go now. Like, what are we doing? What are we grabbing? And they couldn't they couldn't spend an hour looting.
Right.
And seeing what magic items there are and things like that. They had to get back to their like wyverns that they had and figure out how to safely leave before it crashed into the mountain or whatever.
Was that the climax of Horde of the Dragon Queen?
It's not the climax,
Yeah.
but it's one of the chapters in that book. Yeah. Super
I
good.
love.
Super
Yeah,
good.
that was super good.
So it raised the stakes, and
Yeah.
like you might set a timer for an hour, and at the beginning of the hour, it might be like, oh, we've got plenty of time. But then what if you're 45 minutes into that and you get into a combat scenario?
Sure.
And now suddenly you're on a real clock.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoy that.
Yeah. So right now, Shadowdark is only available on DriveThruRPG, I think. But the quick start rules are free, so you can get the PDF. There isn't a physical product available yet.
Yeah.
But the Kickstarter, they are going to open up the backer kit, and it's going to be open to everybody. Nice. So late backers and late submissions and stuff, you can jump on board.
Yep.
So highly recommend it. There's a lot of buzz around this game, and I think it's justified. And I think this could become the fantasy role-playing game du jour, right? So check it out, and Shadowdark from the Arcane Library.
Well, thanks for watching, and thanks to MepaCon 2023 for allowing us to use this space and conduct our interviews.
We've never filmed on location before.
We've left the basement for the first time ever.
I don't know.
And this has been quite the experience. The sky, it's crazy.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to the games we're going to be playing.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of Dungeon Crawl Classics games coming up. I'm going to be trying The Between, which is a carved in Brindlewood game. I'm excited about that. And I'm actually playing a game of old school essentials.
Nice.
I'm going to be trying out the module Winter's Daughter, which I've not read and have never played. So I'm excited about that.
And we'll talk about our experiences here at MepaCon and through our games and whatever on the next episode of Every Edition.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so we're filming 2 episodes, one Friday and one Saturday. So this was our Friday episode, and we'll be, putting them out back to back and recapping the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
Check out everyeditionrpg.com for links to all our socials, including Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you might want to watch or listen to our podcasts, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that jazz. You can always send us a note at everyeditionrpg@gmail.com, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can.
Day 1 in the books. Looking forward to day 2. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, MepaCon. Thanks for watching.